You are about to view a video recording of an RPL interview undertaken with Cathy Munday. This assessment is the knowledge evidence component for the Unit of Competency TAE DEL 301 Provide Work Skill Instruction. You will need a copy of Assessment Cluster 3, Project 4 RPL Professional Conversation Interview, which contains a copy of the questions to be asked and a space to record responses. You will be required to record Cathy Munday as the participant and record your name as the assessor. The date will be the date this interview is viewed. The marking guide, which is the criteria for marking, should have already been developed. This will be used to judge Cathy Munday's responses. You must record a summary of Cathy Munday's responses in the column provided. As RPL interview responses can be quite lengthy, a summary is all that is required to be recorded by the assessor. Although you will hear another assessor interviewing Cathy, you are the lead assessor for this assessment. Cathy Munday will provide you with a summary response for you to record and will elaborate for the assessor, which would reflect a typical RPL interview. There will be a pause between each interview question to provide the opportunity for you to record a summary in your assessor notes as set out in assessor instructions. The assessor may ask follow-up questions if required during the RPL interview. Hi, Cathy. Thank you for coming along today to have this conversation with me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate us doing it over Zoom. It has been quite difficult to travel around at the moment.
Yeah, certainly been challenging, but this is the best way we can do it at the moment, so not a problem. So the way we'll run today is I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and if you can, give me a shorter response that I can sort of be taking down. And if you do have any added detail that you would like to give me, feel free to do that. But if we could, sort of move through each question efficiently, that would be very much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Great. I'll start just by asking, how long have you actually been training?
With the council, it's part of my job to do some training the whole time I've been there, whether it's been coaching or one-on-one. So my summary response would be over the last 5 years.
And what type of training do you actually conduct?
Any safety topic would be something that I would train. Primarily induction, PPE and risk management are the main topics.
And how many sessions do you conduct in the average month?
Over the last 2 years, I'd have to say about twice a month. And that's changed. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but an average about twice a month as a minimum.
How do you identify the characteristics and needs of the learners in your groups?
Well, most of them I work with, so I already have work relationships with them. But I also like to have discussions with learners, especially if they come from a contract company.
Can you give me 2 examples of the learning programs that you've run and outline the program's main requirements and objectives?
Well, the first program I would outline is risk management, and the outcomes or objectives is to support people to identify hazards and put controls in place to work safely. The second would be personal protective equipment, what we have available and when to use it.
And what are the main resources or equipment that you need for your sessions? And how do you check and make sure that they're available and going to be suitable?
We have training session plans that tells us what resources and equipment are required for each session. And it's my job to make sure that they're available and ready for use before each session.
How do you ensure the content of your learning material meets the learning outcomes? And if not, where do you go to seek assistance? And can you give me a couple of examples?
Well, I'll use the example of our training session plans because it tells us what materials, what resources, what content for each session. So our training session plans would apply to the risk management and the personal protective equipment. If I wasn't sure about anything or something had changed, I would go and see our training coordinator. They look after all of our training system, so that would be where I would go.
I do feel I've got a question here that says provide an example of where you go to seek assistance from. I feel like you've just answered part of that in the last question, but can you just confirm for me again where you do go? Who's your main person that you go to seek assistance from?
Primarily the training coordinator, but also the crew supervisors can help out as well because they can help if there's any resource requirements. So I'd put the crew supervisors on there too.
Can you describe 3 training techniques that you've used and when you've used them and how they, promote engagement and participation?
The first one would be butcher paper activities. It allows the learners to talk and write things down, so it's great for remembering things and taking notes. The second would be practical demonstrations where we do simulated work tasks or documents. It helps them to understand and relate on how we want things done in the council. And the third one is we go and do site tours. We go and watch real workers at work. It gets them up, moving around and makes them feel a bit more relaxed and be able to relate that to how they're going to use it out in the workplace. So in summary, it would be butcher's paper activity, the real workplace site tours, and the practical simulations.
Can you outline your understanding of adult learning principles and how you apply these principles in your training?
Yes, the adult learning principles are very important for people who are in the workplace. Is that sometimes I'll be training people that have brought experience into the classroom. So recognising or respecting that experience and building on it is an important principle in every training session. But also that each person might have a different reason or motivation for learning, and it's important that I know what they are so that I can use those to help those learners be successful. And another main one is that adult learners are very practical, so those components of engaging them becomes extremely important. So in summary, motivation for learning, practical learning environment, and respecting their experience.
I'll also get you to outline your understanding of learning styles and how you apply these in your training.
The main learning styles are visual, auditory, and practical. And I apply those with very simple coaching techniques. Tell them, show them, let them have a go. And it makes sure that I cover those components. Tell, show, have a go covers auditory, visual, and practical learners.
Are you able to provide me with 2 examples of how you ensure the learning environment is safe?
Well, as the safety officer at the council, it's important that we have a safe environment, whether we're working or learning. So I make sure that I do a safety observation of the area before we commence. And one of the other important ones is to communicate to my learners their responsibility in helping keep that environment safe.
Describe how you maintain, store and secure learner records in line with your organisational requirements.
Well, I feel this is a 2-part question. The first part is I have to keep them secure while I'm using them, and sometimes that can go over days and sometimes weeks. So the way I keep them secure is I either keep them with me or I put them into a locked filing cabinet. And the second part of that question is how do I get them into the system so they can be stored as a record? So that's where our training coordinator comes in again. I'll hand those completed records over and the training coordinator will put them into our T drive.
Provide an example of how you have adjusted your training due to feedback from learners.
Yes, I can think of a recent example in our risk management program where we had allowed 4 hours and some of the learners said it was a lot of content to fit in with that short space of time. So we created some self-paced learning outside of the classroom where they got an opportunity to look at our procedures, some examples of workplace documents, and what our templates look like and some pictures of how they're used and where. So we made some of the learning self-paced that they did before they came to class in preparation. So that 4 hours became very practical. So in summary, we had some pre-class work they had to do and kept the session at 4 hours with more practical.
Can you give me an example of where you've had to make an adjustment to suit a learner need?
Yes, we had a learner who needed support with reading and writing. And so we identified someone within the council that was willing to be a scribe. And that way we didn't impact on the other learners. They were from a contracting company. So we used a scribe for them to help them do their paperwork.
Well, thank you so much for that, Cathy. It's been really lovely chatting with you today. I've made some notes here, but I will need to go over this a little bit further. How have you gone getting that portfolio of your workplace evidence together for me?
Yes, I've almost got that completed.
Okay. If we can make an appointment, we might try and get together again tomorrow and catch up. I can give you some feedback around today's conversation and we can have a look through that portfolio as well.
Terrific. Okay, well, I will catch up with you tomorrow.
Thank you. See you then. This video will now be paused. Take some time to mark Cathy Munday's responses in line with your marking guide and determine if her knowledge is satisfactory or not yet satisfactory. You will then be required to record the feedback you will give Cathy Munday for the Knowledge Assessment RPL interview. You are about to view a video recording of an example of the workplace portfolio evidence Cathy Munday has presented. This assessment is the performance evidence component for the Unit of Competency TAE DEL 301 Provide Work Skill Instruction. You will need a copy of Assessment Cluster 3, Project 4, RPL Workplace Evidence Checklist, which contains a list of evidence to be presented in line with the rules of evidence and space to record a summary. You will be required to record Cathy Munday as the participant and record your name as the assessor. The date will be the date the evidence is viewed. The second part of this video is only an example of the portfolio of evidence presented by Cathy Munday. You will be required to view and judge all evidence presented in the source document provided. This will give you a guide as to how to judge the evidence using the rules of evidence and how to record assessor notes. The volume of information is contained in the evidence presented, so you will only be required to record a summary of the evidence you have viewed. The marking guide, which is the criteria for marking, should have already been developed. This will be used to judge Cathy Munday's portfolio of workplace evidence. You must record a summary of evidence received from Cathy Munday in the column provided and judge against the marking guide. The measurement must be made against the rules of evidence and a judgment of satisfactory or not yet satisfactory recorded. This document contains Cathy Munday's portfolio of workplace evidence. On the second page, you will find a list of the evidence presented by Cathy Munday. If the checklist is asking for a workplace example that is not on this list, you will record no evidence provided and deem it not yet satisfactory. This is an example only of the evidence presented. Just because it's been presented does not mean it's a satisfactory result. All evidence needs to be viewed thoroughly to ensure all the rules of evidence has been met. Let's review the photo ID provided by Cathy Munday. Full name provided. Signature. Date expired. This evidence presented has some positive and not so positive aspects. Using the rules of evidence, we can determine if all the requirements have been met. The notes recorded are used to justify our decision of satisfactory or not yet satisfactory. Photo ID was given. Date expired. Assessor notes may read, photo ID presented is not current. Not yet satisfactory outcome. This is another example only of the evidence presented. Just because it's been presented does not mean it's a satisfactory result. All evidence needs to be viewed thoroughly to ensure all the rules of evidence has been met. Let's review the third-party report provided by Cathy Munday. Not all sections have been completed in the workplace. Signature and date have been provided, but no supervisor contact details. Sufficient evidence has been presented with the company logo and supervisor signature, but no contact name and details. Currency is shown by falling within the time period allowed. Notes may read, confirm with supervisor, task never completed. No contact details provided, name and phone number. Signature and logos presented, date within 2 years. Not yet satisfactory result. Take some time to review and mark Cathy Munday's workplace evidence in line with your marking guide. You will need to determine if the evidence is satisfactory or not yet satisfactory. You will then be required to record the feedback you will give Cathy Munday for the Performance Assessment RPL portfolio of workplace evidence. You will also be required to record overall feedback on the competency outcome record in preparation for the practical component to give Cathy Munday her feedback. This is the end of this video.